2022 Justin and Tyler Mid-Year Movie Awards. And in the previous video where we talked about all of our miscellaneous awards from years past, as well as our performances and direction, now we get into the real meat of the matter here, the specific movies themselves, and the worst thing that we've seen this year, followed up by all the good stuff. We want to get the bad thing out of the way right off the top. So that's where we're going to be starting in this video, which is the single worst movie that each of us have seen this year. Then we get into, of course, your choices, the fan choice for the best movies so far of 2022. We get into our specific top 3 so far in 2022. And then we also talk about the movies that we are anticipating the most for the rest of this year. So we will get the unpleasantness out of the way right away. Our worst movie of 2022 so far. And we're going to have Tyler kick us off on this one. I think we both really like our picks for this so far this year. Tyler, take it away.
Okay, so my pick for the mid-year worst movie of the year so far is not actually it's not technically my least favorite movie of the year, okay, but I wanted to pick it because I actually have a plan growing for the end of the year too that I kind of didn't want to trample on. But so mine is a movie called a French movie called Big Bug. So I'll say the bad about it first. I actually like the director Jean-Pierre Jeunet. He made City of Lost Children and Delicatessen. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah. Delicatessen.
I'm having some issues.
We got it.
Speaking a different language. So I like him, and generally I like his colorful visual flair.
Okay.
But I didn't like it here. And the premise of it is that these suburbanites get locked in their home during an android uprising because they're like house robots are they're well intentioned, and they lock them in because there's like danger outside. So it's kind of just living. It's a pretty cool premise. But I felt the movie was amateurish, and I know he's not an amateur because he's made great movies. Like he does these fade outs often, and sometimes that can work, but sometimes it just made it feel cheap. It like compounded the bad. Like the humor didn't work. The story just plodded along. The movie didn't work for me, and it was really disappointing. And the only reason this is an interesting pick is because I'm going to call it back to my boy here. Years ago, this guy called Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets, Valerian and the City of a Thousand Poops. Also a movie from France. This is a movie from France. I'm calling Big Bug Big Poop in honor of you. There we go. That's the only reason this was an interesting pick is I wanted to make a poop joke.
Okay, there you go.
So it's Big Poop. So our war on France continues.
All right, fair enough.
I'm leaving it at that. I'm leaving it at the war on France continues.
Okay, well, the war is long, but we shall prevail. I guess that's interesting.
Solidarity.
Interesting. Hey. Look, if we're taking movies and tossing them on the poop pile, we're at 2.
Yeah, well, we got 2. I might have to start keeping up with this.
It may have to be something we include every year. Yeah. I haven't seen that.
Yeah, I know. I figured. That's why I knew it wasn't interesting for that reason.
Right. Fair enough.
I just wanted to make the poop joke.
I enjoy this new war that I didn't know I was in, but apparently I am.
You've been drafted.
So, here we go. Knuckle up, France. My worst movie that I've seen so far in 2022 is a movie called Shattered. So the premise of Shattered is you have this tech-rich divorced guy who's just living in this palatial cabin. It's a cabin, but it's like this high-tech, awesome, dream home kind of thing. And he's in a bar, and he meets this, smoking hot blonde, and the things that happen when you meet a smoking hot blonde happen. They go back to his place, they have drinks, they have sex. Oh, she's the perfect woman. We've all fallen for this trap. And it turns out that, wouldn't you know it, things aren't quite as they seem. I'm going to be referring to my phone here a little bit, so pardon me for looking down. The movie primarily stars Cameron Monaghan and Lily Krug, and here's my problem. First of all, isn't it just worse when a bad movie has like 12 different studios attached to it? So there's so many fingers in the shit pie, and everybody's hands wind up smelling bad.
And then at the beginning you have to watch this studio, this studio, this studio, this, and you're like, okay, let's get on with it.
12 different
Yeah,
calls.
I hate that.
It's awful. It's just real, and you're thinking like 12 studios working in conjunction with each other to some degree couldn't make a better movie than this. Like, it's absolutely unbelievable. The two of them, by the way, even when things are as they seem, have no chemistry together whatsoever. Like, just absolutely not. I don't know if they're just not good actors or they just had no, like, sometimes you can have two good performers, they just don't have the chemistry together. And one of those two things is true here. They're either bad actors or they just had no chemistry together. One of those two things happens. The Krug's character, the girl, is like marginally interesting. So, like, marginally interesting. And John Malkovich is in this too. And God bless John Malkovich, because he's trying. He's trying to make, anytime he's on screen, he's at least moderately interesting. He's trying so hard to polish this turd. There's just no meat on this. It's supposed to be a thriller. And it's just lame, man. Like, there's just like this great,
it's lame,
man. Like, there's no meat on it. There's no intrigue on it. There's no suspense. And again, if you're gonna be a thriller, have some intrigue and have some question as to what's gonna happen.
Right.
There's no question of what is going to happen in this movie, and the worst thing that I can say about it, I didn't watch this movie that long ago. It was like the end of April. So we're talking, what, 5 weeks ago? I do not remember how this movie ends. I don't remember what happens. I watched it straight through to the end. I don't remember what happens. It was so not memorable in any way, shape, or form. I don't know what this is. I don't remember what happened at all. I may have to watch this again to figure it out.
So what was it that pulled you into this? Was it a premise that was interesting to you, or just I needed to see movies that are potentially bad?
I saw John Malkovich's face on the poster.
Okay.
And I was like, I'll watch this. I like John Malkovich.
Yeah.
And the premise of it was kind of okay. Like, I'll just very quickly read that. And actually, there's a funny quip at the end of this, but I'll kind of read the premise again. Rich divorcee falls in love with a mysterious woman, and Chris, who's the guy, his ex-wife and his child eventually get trapped, and a desperate fight for survival will most likely ensue. They don't want to make any promises. No promises on this, but a desperate fight for survival, quote, will most likely ensue. That's my favorite line of the whole description. So now that we've gotten the unpleasantness out of the way, it's time to get into the good stuff. The best movies so far of 2022. And first, we're going to shine the light on that direction on you folks, the fans' choice for best movies so far of 2022. I have, of course, been soliciting suggestions and information and answers from my various social media platforms, so hopefully you got in on one of those, and if not, you will have a couple more opportunities before the end of the year to make your voice heard as to what your favorite movies of 2022 are. So, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the first kind of collection of those that were mentioned, very infrequently before we get into basically the top 3 fans' choice. And I'm going to give this guy, who doesn't get the opportunity to see this information, I'm going to give him the opportunity to see if he can guess which movie lands in the top, anywhere in the top 3, the number 3 spot, the number 2 spot, or the number 1 spot. Tyler, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right.
Sort of.
So, again, we're starting off with movies that got a little bit of love, not a ton, but got a little bit of love from people as their favorite movie so far of 2022. Tyler, Jackass Forever, Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Damn, not top 3.
Not top 3.
Sad.
The Lost City. Metal Lords. think you can guess who that was.
Yeah, you know what? Now that you mention it, yes, I remember. Oh man, I can't believe you would do that.
The Northman.
Right.
And Turning Red.
Oh, I forgot to watch that.
Yeah.
I mean, look, Northman, you're always gonna have the artsy fartsy folk, people like Robert Eggers. I can see that. I mean, Sonic, The Lost City. I mean, I can't really imagine a world where I would ever think that was like the best movie of the year so far, unless I've only seen a few movies, because it's a fun movie. I'm not taking away from it. What was the last one you said?
Turning Red.
Oh yeah, Pixar.
Yeah.
Right. Anytime.
Anytime.
I say that with superhero movies. Anytime a Pixar movie is released.
And then there was also Jackass Forever and Metal Lords.
Yeah. Look, the thing is, Metal Lords, I know who it is, so I can see it.
Yeah,
I understand, but no. and then Jackass is Jackass. I mean, sure. Why not?
I mean, if somebody was like a massive... Actually, I remember who this was. Somebody that's a massive fan of... Or was a massive fan of Jackass back in the day, I could absolutely see them being like, yo, this was in theater, I died. Yeah. So I get it.
Yeah.
Definitely understand it. The next movie is one that got a bit more support than those, but fell just short of the top 3. And that is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So it does not land in the top 3 this year. Tyler, does that surprise you?
Well, that was one of my predictions.
Right.
So now I'm gonna have to do a quick I don't know what else has played this year, but anyway, I'll comment on that. I mean, superhero, obviously.
Right.
Right. Like an insane superhero movie. I get it.
But see, it's a bad movie because there's too much CGI.
Yeah.
Right. That's the argument. Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you, like basically any Marvel movie or any superhero movie, period, it's a broken record because we talk about it every year, but that absolutely makes sense. Now we're into the meat of the matter, the top 3 fans' choice of this year. The only thing I will spoil: number 3 and number 2 have about the same amount of support. There is a runaway number 1. Tyler, what do you think the number 3 fans' choice movie of 2022 so far is?
Everything, Everywhere, All at Once.
It is Everything, Everywhere, All at Once.
It's getting so much love absolutely everywhere. I considered putting it on... Considered number 1. I don't know. I don't know. That was a lucky guess. I mean, I put it in my 3, but it was a lucky guess that I put it 3rd. Right. But I'm not surprised. Everyone loves that movie.
And you did have a bit of a... it'll probably... A little bit of it will wind up on camera, but you did kind of have that crisis of faith when you're like, oh, Doctor Strange isn't in the top 3.
Well, that's the thing. I would have been wrong.
Right.
If you would have got me to predict this before you said the other ones, I actually would have been wrong.
Right.
Because I didn't have this originally, because I forgot about it, honestly.
The number 2 fans' choice favorite movie of 2022 so far. Tyler, what do you think it is?
The Batman.
Number 2 is Top Gun Maverick.
Damn it! I got it in my own head. You're in my head, Charles.
But you were not the Juggernaut.
Because I thought, okay, here was I thought that, because you said 3 and 2 have like similar amount of votes. I thought that something, I know it's Batman, but it's also very artsy Batman. I thought that artsy was beside artsy. That's what I went with.
That's fair. I can definitely understand why.
But I was wrong.
You were wrong. But I can definitely understand the logic there, where you were just like, I'll take, like, spoilers. There's not much artsy about Top Gun, right? Like, it's not a high. It is not a snobby movie. So I can totally understand where you were going.
Yeah. So my thing was, I'm not real surprised given the reception of all this. The fans seem to really dig this movie in the same way. I actually said to my older brother on a drive recently, I said, I was talking about the movie awards, as I do, and they said that one year their favorite movie was Bill and Ted.
Yeah.
Because, like, it shines a light on. I'm not saying that the people who answer this are casual, because they're, you know, I'm sure many aren't, but it goes to show that, like, a movie like Top Gun, that just people just want to be entertained, and I'm like the same way. I'm not saying I'm a snob, but I'm a little maybe, but they just want to be entertained. If you can give them that sequel that I don't know if they wanted it or not. I don't know the fan base. But you give them that sequel, then they're gonna go in and be like, you know what? I saw the character I loved, or whatever, and I just was entertained by this.
100%.
Tom Cruise just out there trying to make entertaining movies for the family.
That's literally all Tom Cruise wants to do.
That's all he does. Yeah, that's literally. My number one was Top Gun, so I'm wrong.
Right.
So let's go.
So the number one fans' choice of 2022 so far, in a runaway so far, is the Batman. Is Turning Red. No, is the Batman, obviously.
Yeah.
Reactions.
Superhero.
Yep.
I know that this one was well received, but I guess maybe I got in my head a little bit with this because I saw hate for it too, because it was such a, hyped up film that I saw quite a few people also being like, it was slow and boring and all this other stuff. So I guess I got in my head there a little. I mean, I was close. I mean, the top three movies I got right.
It's
in
true.
A sense. The ordering wasn't right, so I was 1 for 3 on that.
Yeah. I saw the same reactions where it was just like, oh, can we just have where's the fun camp?
Yeah, right.
Folks always want the opposite of whatever Batman product they're given. If they get the fun campy, they're like, oh, where's the dark cynical Batman? You get the dark Batman, they're like, well, where's the fun campy Batman 66? And it's like, well, there's no policing you people. So yeah, I could definitely get why you would have ranked it that way. Honestly, I was slightly surprised by these results, but yeah, at least to this point in the year, Batman's kind of running away with things, but there is plenty of time and plenty of movie left to come out in 2022.
I'm going to make a prediction, although this might change, because at the end of the year, I'm going to try to predict the top 5. Mm-hmm. We'll do it on camera, so before you even list anything.
Yeah.
So then people will know if I'm right or wrong, because I did well last year. I think it was like 3 or 5 or something.
Yeah, something like that.
And my prediction, which may change when I sit down later this year, I think that their top 3 movies are going to be top 5 at the end of the year.
You think all 3 of those will be in the top 5?
For sure, Batman and Top Gun.
And it is now time, ladies and gentlemen, as we move on to the main event of the afternoon, because it's not the evening yet, our top 3 best movies of 2022 so far. We do have a couple of honorable mentions each as well. We did a top 3, obviously very stripped down from what we normally do in the award show where we do a top 30. So we're giving you about 10%. We're just giving you that little soupçon so far this year. Obviously, we're going to be seeing a ton more movies between now and the end of the year. But just to give you a bit of a vision where our heads are at so far this year. Tyler, is there anything you'd like to say before we get started?
No, I want to know. I want to know yours.
Just want to know.
Just want to know.
Just need it. All right. We will get directly into that with the honorable mentions.
Okay, so my 2 honorable mentions are Emergency and Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Ooh, very good.
Now, Emergency is like a comedy drama about these 3 friends, 2 of which are black, 1 is Hispanic, and the 2 black ones, they come into their house, and the other guy's playing games or whatever, so doesn't know what's going on, and they find a passed out girl in the room, and they kind of they're like, we should call 911, and the other was like, nah, we're black, right, that kind of thing, and then they try to get her to the hospital and stuff, and it's actually it's actually pretty funny, and there's emotional beats that really work, especially near the end, but the script is really the star there. I like the duo especially, and so that's all I'll say. And then Sonic the Hedgehog 2, how are these movies so good?
I know, they're better than they have any right to be.
This is like a good superhero type movie for me. I really like these movies.
Before we go any further, I do have just a quick question to ask you about Sonic 2. How much of an uptick do you think Sonic 2 was over Sonic 1? Because I've only watched Sonic 2 once, and my snap judgment on that was just It's no worse than the first one, but I don't know that it's a ton better. But what do you think?
On my scale, out of 100, it's like 5 points higher.
Okay.
So 80 to 85.
Okay.
I don't think the Sonic movies have gotten to that 9 out of 10 amazing area for me, but.
Right.
That's the thing. Maybe it would hit amazing, but like I said in the previous video, Jim Carrey's lines just aren't that good.
Right.
But the action works. There's heart. There is good comedy. It has Knuckles. It has Tails. It has Sonic. What's not to love?
Fair enough. I
But
like
still the people's champ.
That's true. Still the people.
Well, I don't know if it is as much this year.
We'll
But like the first one, it definitely was the people's champ of that year.
Yeah. My honorable mentions for best movie of 2022 so far. I also have two: Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and you know how I said nostalgia makes this bad movie good. Jackass Forever. Okay, so here's the thing. With Doctor Strange, I guess you have to, by default, count me amongst those that didn't react to it as well as other movies in the MCU. Like, it's still an 8 out of 10 for me. So it's like, so for me, it's very, very solid because my higher end movies have to work so much harder to get into my higher end than they seem to for other people, I guess. I don't know that that's by design necessarily, but it just seems to be the way things work out. I'm moderately concerned for where the MCU is going, but I think it's because I don't see it yet. Because I'm not.
Oh, this is good. This is a good conversation.
Yeah, it's good.
Let's have this conversation. Get your crap out.
Exactly. So it's like and there's a lot of supplementary material in the MCU that I haven't watched or I'm only getting bits and pieces of. So maybe it's a result of that. I really like the character. The movie itself is quite good. I mean, I shouted out America Chavez earlier, who was a great character, and I had a really good villain. And Jackass Forever, I have no intellectual defense of it. It's just, again, it took me back to a place in time when these movies were my comfort movies at a time in my life where I was doing things in which I needed comfort. Like, I was away from home, I was in a place I'd never been before. I could throw on the Jackass movie for an hour and a half and not have to think about anything, like just sort of shut my brain off, have my comfort movie in the background, whatever. So it took me back to that, which, again, for all the, I guess, faults that I could still point out about that movie, and I did in the previous video, it still hangs on right now to this point in the year in my honorable mentions.
Okay, so for Jackass, I said to you, now it was being a little hyperbole, I suppose, but my point still remains. Before it came out, or maybe when it first came out, I said there will be many better made movies this year than Jackass, but yes. I bet you there will be few movies that are more entertaining. Now, I don't subscribe to it because I liked it quite a bit, but it's not on my list, spoiler, but I totally see it. You just want to be entertained by the stupidity of it, so I get that. That's a good pick. And for Doctor Strange, because I've actually seen people, now they were much more angry about it because it's the internet,
totally,
say that they hate where the MCU is gone because there doesn't seem to be a plan in place, while they forget that like the first phase didn't have a plan in place. But anyway, besides that, like, they were really aggressive about it. Like, if you don't know, you don't know. I don't know. I don't work for them.
Neither one of us, surprisingly, neither one of us are Kevin Feige.
Like, I don't know for sure, but I will tell you, there's a lot of people who think that they're leaning to Secret Wars, which is just essentially, I won't go on too much about this, it's essentially, because incursions happen, because they talk about that in Doctor Strange.
Yes.
And the multiverse is like going to get destroyed, and there's a whole bunch of stuff happens. But essentially, Doctor Doom gets powers from, I think, the Beyonders, and then he creates his own world called Battle World, where he's like God Emperor Doom. Okay. And there's like certain sections, like there's zombie or whatever and all that, and they kind of do bad, like they kind of exist in that world, not knowing about the previous universes. except for a few people who are on like a ship that managed to stay out of it, so they arrive on Battleworld and like, yo, there's something weird going on here. That's essentially, I just summed it up. If they do that, I am super amped for where they go. They have to introduce Doctor Doom, first of all, but I totally could see him being the big bad, and I want him as the big bad. But I can understand if you're not, like, if you don't know anything really or much about comic books, then it doesn't seem like there's that much direction. Now, maybe they don't even go to Secret Wars. Like, everyone's just speculating. It just seems like the logical place for it.
Right.
So I guess when I watch something like this, well, one, it's like essentially phase one, you know,
right,
in the grand scheme of this arc. But two, it's like I kind of see where Secret Wars might come in, so I'm kind of like, well, I think there is some direction, but maybe that's completely wrong.
And I just want to clarify for anybody out there, it's not that I don't think there's a direction. I'm just nervous because I don't know what it is.
Well, yeah, I was nervous as soon as they started introducing like time travel and multiverse, because that stuff can get very convoluted.
It can get so convoluted so quickly.
So I think they built, because they're obviously built different. I think they would be wise to just be like, okay, we built the multiverse, but now we're gonna like shrink it again.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I want to see the MCU continue in the way of the comics all the time, because they're movies, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So like that stuff always scares me. But yeah, anyway, that was a long spiel about comics. So
that's what you come here for, though.
Yeah. So my number 3 is Doctor Strange 2. It's like we were just going in the weeds a little bit about it, and we're going to continue. I was talking previously about directors injecting their style into superhero movies, and I said Raimi managed to throw in some horror there, which I actually appreciated. Cool cameos, like really cool cameos.
Yeah.
Like John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic, what the internet has wanted for years.
Exactly.
Even though he got put out, but still, we know that like that's going to be him now. That's awesome. Yep. I mean, Professor X.
Yeah, my boy Patrick Stewart,
like
just rocking it.
Yeah, like I really loved that part of it. I think that everybody, including myself, thought it was going to be like more crazy in terms of the cameos, and it wasn't. But that's not a bad thing. That was more like the expectation of the internet. It doesn't have a villain problem. That's cool. Doctor Strange is still a good character. It started off strong with the action sequence. Like, they didn't miss a beat there. It was just the movie begins to running away from something. I really like this movie. Now, in terms of, you know, my favorite superhero movies, even like the MCU, no, it's not top 5. It's still a 9 out of 10 for me, because I just love superhero movies. I want to know what's going to happen.
Yep.
I love it.
Yeah, and no matter what I could say about anything, I want to know what's going to happen. Like, I'm far from out because of this movie. I'm just like, if anything, I want to know what's going to happen more now because I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I absolutely want to. And I may not be, because I've only seen the movie once. So maybe maybe it needs a second viewing. I know a number of other MCU movies have needed that second viewing. Yeah. For me to be like, okay, cool, like I'm fully on board now. So maybe this is just another one of those. It may just need that second viewing.
Yeah, sometimes you get lost in the excitement, and then the movie doesn't live up to it, and then like I watch it again because I'm so excited for every superhero movie, or like at least in the MCU, even if it's one that I'm not especially excited for, like months before, as soon as opening night comes or the week before, I'm like, yeah, let's go. Yeah. Like I get so excited because I can't wait because of the way the story's going, and I just love it. Like I've said it before that I think in terms of like mainstream blockbuster movies, we are in the golden age. But that's just my personal preference. People who, like our buddy Zach, doesn't absolutely adore superhero movies, so for him it's not.
Right.
But for me it is.
My number 3 best movie of 2022 so far is in fact a movie that originally came out in 2020. However, it does qualify as a cheater because, of course, The Thing happened, which completely turned the panini, that turned the entire film industry on its head. So this didn't actually get any kind of wide release until this year. It is Poupelle of Chimney Town, So this is a Japanese anime. I got to watch this at a smaller theater, shout out Park Lane. I watched it with an English dub. So obviously Pupel of Chimney Town is not the direct original name of the movie. So the proper name of the movie is Aiga Entotsu Machi no Pupel, and I'm sure I've butchered the pronunciation of that. But I watched it as Pupel of Chimney Town with the English dub. And the reason that I wanted to see this at all is I read the premise, and the premise is cool. Awesome. Yeah, it's such a great premise. So you have a city that's fully surrounded by smoke because the city is just full of these chimney stacks that are constantly billowing out smoke. And the people that live in this city don't think anything exists beyond the smoke anymore because they've been there for about 250 years. So they don't believe that there's anything outside the smoke. You can't sail beyond it, you couldn't fly beyond it, they don't even believe in the stars anymore. So the main character of the movie is a young chimney sweep by the name of Pupel, and this is what really hooked me. He meets a man made of garbage.
Yeah, that's what hooked me when you told me about it.
So I was like,
I like that.
I read that, I was like, come again? It's a man made of garbage, alright. And they just go on this buddy cop adventure, basically to prove that the stars actually exist.
Yeah.
This movie is basically 100 straight minutes of joy. Because this movie proved to me that classic storytelling at the end of the day still wins. This is a story that has been told 100 times. This is a story that's been told recently 100 times. This is a movie that has secrets and it guards them very, very well and reveals them immaculately and in such a way that you are not expecting what is coming, and it's told so beautifully, and even with an English dub that obviously sometimes doesn't exactly match up the way you would expect it, it is just such a beautiful narrative that hit me almost on the same level as a Kubo and the Two Strings, on that level of this has secrets and it hides them, and then when it reveals them to you, it doesn't just hit you in the face with its secrets, it reveals them, and it's very, very impactful, very emotionally evocative. So, Pupel of Chimney Town, my number 3 best movie of the year so far.
I haven't gotten to watch it yet, but I was kind of saving it for after the mid-year. I'm expecting to really like this. It also goes to show why animated movies are something that people should follow, because you could do a garbage man.
Right.
In a live action, but I feel like outside of maybe some rare instances, it's probably going to look better animated.
Yeah.
I promise you I will watch that by the end of the year.
It became widely available through digital in the middle of last month, so it is available. Do yourself the favor.
Okay, my number 2 is The Fallout.
Ooh, there you go.
I don't know that I put it as number 2 over Doctor Strange because I don't know at the end of the year that I'll do that. Oh, I might, because I keep thinking about this movie in a way that I don't necessarily think of Doctor Strange. It's just one of those films that keep coming up in my head, and I didn't expect to like it that much. I just watched it because I didn't even know it was about a school shooting. So when I'm watching it, it actually helped me enjoy the movie even more because I knew something bad happened in it, but I didn't know what. So early on when the school shooting happens, I'm like, oh, this is about a school shooting, and it was like I was experiencing. Well, not like I was experiencing that, but you know what I mean. The shock that the characters were feeling, I was like, oh,
yeah,
damn,
it completely changes the context.
So that was kind of cool. That's why sometimes it's nice to not watch trailers.
Yes,
you just go by a movie like, oh yeah, there's some talent involved or whatever. It's getting decent. It got decent reviews. It's a cheater pick technically. I sang the praises of Ortega because she was a awkward and charming but mean but sympathetic teenager and the writing is really awesome here. It's very good all around. Even hits the dialogue well, even though teenagers are pretty cringy sometimes, but that's not a fault of the writing. That's just no, this is how they talk. So you nailed it.
Yeah.
You nailed it in a way that other writers have not, because you've ranted in years ago about bad teenage writing, and I agree with you. It's hard to get that. And I think The Fallout is a fairly special movie, honestly. it does everything it wants to do incredibly well. I mean, it's not like I wouldn't say it's the best directed movie because it doesn't call attention to itself, but sometimes that is good directing. I love The Fallout, so I wanted to put it number 2. I don't know if it gets there at the end of the year. It'll be on my list, like high, I'm sure. But I wanted to stick it. I wanted to stick it beside number 1. Give it its moment.
There you go. And it's on the whole teenage dialogue thing. It's usually pretty evident when a movie is written from the perspective of, oh, this is 50-year-olds writing about what they think teenagers talk like. Yeah. Versus an instance like this, where I think clearly that was not the case. Or if it was, this 50-year-old actually knew how teenagers talk, and it was performed that way. So there's a huge difference between like the plasticky fake dialogue and dialogue here that works. So that's great because, again, with a concept like that, that could take you completely out of it. Yeah. Right? The rest of it could be fine, but then if you have this, it's like, ah, boy. My number 2 best movie of 2022 so far is a movie that had no right to be as good as it actually was. Top Gun Maverick. Look, a 36-year later sequel to Top Gun has no right to be made as well as it is, look as good as it does, evocate the emotions that it does. The biggest criticism of this movie is too often, for me anyway, the biggest criticism is too often it relies on standing on the shoulder of the shoulders of the first one. It might call back to the first one a little too much sometimes, and just rely on it a little too much. But even in that, I understand why it's doing it. And it doesn't call back necessarily to the worst parts of the original. It calls back to the best parts of the original. And even the stuff in this movie that is corny. Because there's some cornball in this movie. Big time. Even the corny stuff is great because the rest of it that's around it is all so great. His performance is tremendous. The direction in this is very good. Even the script is good. The script for this movie doesn't have to be good. It really doesn't.
No, you're right.
Like, it doesn't have to be good, and by and large, it definitely is. The whole movie is built around a trope, which is various unnamed foreign folks have uranium. Like, that's the premise of the movie. And that's a trope. And of course, they don't name who those others are. Just as they don't in the first one, I don't think. But even building around that trope, and there's a lot of people that are going to say, oh, this is rehash. But boy, oh boy, this, again, 36 years later, the Top Gun sequel has no right to be as good as it is. Right from that brilliant opening scene. Top Gun Maverick, man, I could not have asked for more from Top Gun Maverick, and it's my number 2 so far this year.
Sometimes when you're rehashing something that, so old it can work really well, but you just want to see more. Sometimes that doesn't work. Like, I think The Force Awakens didn't work as well, and it essentially rehashed some stuff.
Yeah.
But it was still fun. But I'm sure I will like this movie when I sit down and watch it. I don't know that I'll love it. Maybe I will.
Maybe.
It's hard to know.
I hope you love it.
There's no way of knowing if I'll love the movie or not. My number 1 is The Batman.
Consensus.
Yay! Yay.
See you, folks. No. Sorry, go ahead.
Where do I start? I'm going to compare it to other Batman movies to start.
Sure.
Batman isn't as terrifying as Batfleck, I don't think. This is a criticism, I suppose, but it doesn't really dampen my excitement for the film. But I don't really think that in terms of just performances that there's one standout one. Like, Dano's the best, obviously, but the point I was going to make when you were talking about him in the previous video, but I decided to hold off, was that performance as a Riddler by itself, I would never give him a spot, because it was good. Mm-hmm. And he was the closest to being great, but But like Pattinson was a good Batman, but I don't think it's this amazing performance.
Right.
Right? So the movie's weakness, if there is one, is that the performances aren't amazing. But that not everything in a movie has to be amazing. Because everything else is.
Mm-hmm.
The soundtrack is, the directing is, the story is, the action sequences when they happen, so like cinematography and everything, that's amazing. Like, everything else about the movie is amazing. Right. I just don't think like the performances are next level. So I've said mostly all I've had to say, I guess, about the movie. I mean, we could compare it to like The Dark Knight and The Batman if you wanted, because a lot of people do that. Mm. But people annoy me because they're like, the Batman sucks. The Dark Knight is so good. It's like, okay, you can have that opinion, but why are you being so hostile about it?
Right.
Like, isn't it cool to have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 really good Batman movies? Wouldn't you want to have as many as possible?
It's true. Absolutely.
Like, if you're a Batman fan, like, isn't it cool to have some animated Batman and older Batman and newer Batman and
isn't it
Justice
cool to
League
have
Batman?
all these different versions of Batman, because all of these take place in different like contexts of Batman, different points along like the Batman trajectory, right?
Right.
I love the point that you kind of make about like there isn't that standout performance. I think Robert Pattinson is a pretty darn good Batman, and I think he's insulated by a very good cast.
Yeah.
So like,
good.
Yeah, it's like even if you don't have the standout performances, there's no one to me in that movie who is not believable.
Right, I agree.
So in that sense, I think you have a pretty darn good ensemble here. Who you don't have the individual aside from Dano as he's
Dano's
presented.
the closest to it.
Yeah. So like if your plot line is like this, like Dano's like a little bit. Dano's the bump, right? But then like everything else kind of averages out, and you have a solid, believable ensemble performance.
Right, and going into it, I was a little weary of Pattinson as Batman, not because I don't like old Robert. I love Robert. I've sung the praises of him for quite some time now. Even if I don't love all the movies he's doing, I always find him really interesting in them and really good. And so having seen the movie twice now, I still don't know that he would have been my pick for Batman, but I still liked him as Batman.
Right.
Right, and maybe years from now I'll look back and be like, oh no, he was... I mean, because the thing is, he was like a very good, broody Batman, like emo Batman.
Right.
He did do that well.
I
guess if you approach it as a character that hasn't come to terms yet with who he is and his past, then yeah, I guess that's pretty good. Right. I just don't think it really demanded a whole lot of him.
I like him for the choice for this particular Batman, because this particular Batman is more comfortable being Batman than he is being Bruce Wayne. Yeah. He's not comfortable being Bruce Wayne, right. And that's portrayed very well, I think, in this movie. Like, he's fighting because the Batman that we have seen most recently, specifically Christian Bale and Ben Affleck, have the Bruce Wayne portion of themselves down pat. When they're Bruce Wayne, they're the highly confident, polished business person. Like, I think to myself of like when Christian Bale sits down in The Dark Knight in the restaurant, and they're just like, I don't know if there's another space. Like, oh yeah, I just bought the place. Yeah. Right? Like that confidence of being billionaire Bruce Wayne. And that's not what this Robert Pattinson is. He's what, 2 years into being Batman, I think? Yeah. He's a young man not comfortable being himself, so he's this. And he's more comfortable being this than he is being himself.
Bale is clearly, at least he becomes comfortable with being Bruce Wayne. I think in Batman Begins, he's not, right away he's not. But he does become that. And obviously Pattinson's isn't at all. And I was thinking of Batfleck, and I realized he is comfortable being Bruce Wayne, but at the same time, that Batman is so unhinged that it's almost like he's comfortable, but still forcing himself to be it.
Yeah.
in a way that the other ones are, because like he wants to go there because he's angry and he's kind of like he's still doing the Bruce Wayne stuff and doing it well, but he's like, I gotta get out. Like he's like forcing it, which isn't really how I thought about it until just as you were talking. I was like, eh. So it's different Batmans.
We like to evoke thought around here.
Yeah.
The one extra thing I kind of want to throw out here is like, I didn't shout out Matt Reeves when we were talking about direction. He made himself a hell of a Batman movie here. Like this in talking and kind of comparing to the recent Batman movies, I think this is among the best. I genuinely do. It would be very difficult for me to sit down. I haven't sat down and really hammered this out in my brain. It would be difficult for me to kind of rank them right away. But look, this is among the best, and this is among the best portrayals of Gotham, and the best tonally among the best Batman movie that I think has ever existed. So Matt Reeves did something really special here, and I kind of took the director award in a specific direction for the mid-year awards. But I mean, at the end of the year, if Matt Reeves is not on this list, I've suffered some kind of horrible accident, because I love Matt Reeves and he made himself a phenomenal Batman movie.
Yeah, you know, I did see somebody make a pretty salient point comparing Nolan and this. They said that Reeves nailed Gotham City in a way that Nolan didn't, because Nolan movies, Gotham just feels like Chicago. I think
yes,
and
100%.
And don't get me wrong, I'm okay with, like, I've rewatched the Nolan movies recently. Watched Batman vs Superman a number of times, like once fairly recently, and all that. So I'm like, I got Batman fresh in my mind. I started watching some of the animated series again. Like, I'm all Batmaned up here, but I do like that point. It is a good point and speaks volumes to how different the movies actually are.
We have consensus. The best movie so far in 2022, The Batman. You might think we're done, ladies and gentlemen, but we are not. Those are our best movies so far on the year. We have the consensus #1 with The Batman, but we're less than halfway through the year. So we've got a lot of movies still yet to come out this year. Unfortunately, we did have a big one in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse Part 1 that did get pushed to next year. So that kind of sucks, because that was certainly going to wind up on mine, but we got production delays. It happens. So that's off the table, but that doesn't mean that there's not a ton of stuff coming that we're not highly anticipating. So here are our top 5 most anticipated movies for the rest of 2022.
So I found this incredibly difficult to make a 5. There's so many good movies coming up.
Yeah.
And I feel weird about my 5th one, because I don't believe it's coming out. It's weird that I looked it up and it says it's still coming out this year.
Okay.
But Black Panther Wakanda Forever?
Yeah.
Still this year?
It's still scheduled to come out.
It doesn't feel like it's gonna be this year.
I know.
So I gotta undo a wrongdoing. I liked Black Panther when I saw it, whatever year it came out. I didn't give it enough love, because I became honest with myself over the last few years of even like a movie that I think is slightly lesser than the good ones, which I actually do still think Black Panther's not amongst the great. I know a lot of people disagree with that. I still would rather watch the first Black Panther than many other movies, because it's a superhero movie. So I did up my rating for it.
Okay.
Now, the reason this is #5 is because, for obvious reasons, Black Panther's not, well, you know, Chadwick Boseman isn't in it.
Right.
And I do like him, like, as that character, and I know they're going to do something cool with it. I know it's going to be a really good movie, and so, just on the grounds of being a superhero movie, the only reason it's not higher again is because Boseman's not in it, and that sucks.
Yeah.
So, but I'm still excited. I want to see what they do.
My #5 most anticipated movie for the remainder of 2022 is Bullet Train, because my God, does that ever look like a stylish treat.
I knocked that off my list. That was in the top, like, 8 that I had, or top 10 that I needed to whittle down.
It just looks like just such a treat. Like, this looks like it's going to be one of these movies that I'm just going to sit back and be like, okay, movie, blow me away. And I know it's visually, I know it's going to. It's a very simple kind of story, but my god, it just looks like it's going to be so much fun. And like I implicitly trust Brad Pitt to deliver in basically any role that he has to do. Like I recently rewatched The Big Short.
Yeah.
And he just randomly shows up towards the end of that movie in a bit part. I don't even think he was advertised as being in the movie.
Yeah.
And he just shows up in this bit part, and I'm like, I fully believe that Brad Pitt is this investor. I fully believe this, and I'm so confident in his ability to deliver no matter what he's asked to deliver that I think this movie's going to be phenomenal. So it's my number 5. I can't wait to see Bullet Train.
Right. So the year that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and Ad Astra came out, we had this discussion about what Brad Pitt we prefer. Mm-hmm. You kind of went with like the more serious one. I went with like we like both, but I went with like I love the charming Brad Pitt, and this one's gonna be the charming Brad Pitt. So I'm gonna adore this performance for sure. So my number 4 is the most expensive Netflix produced movie of all time now. The Gray Man.
Ooh, yes.
Directed by the Russo brothers. You know, they did Infinity War, they did Endgame, they did Winter Soldier, they did Civil War. Mm-hmm. And like, at least 2 of those, well, I think 2 of those are like the best MCU movies ever made.
Right.
Winter Soldier, people adore, and I did that a little dirty. I need to rewatch Winter Soldier. So I think I like it a lot more now that I'm like actually a Captain America fan. And I like Civil War a lot. And they even made Cherry, which didn't set the world on fire, but I really liked it.
Yeah.
And so I have to realize that at least from like 2014 or so on, there's some of my favorite modern directors, because they wrote Extraction. Not that the script was like the best part of that movie, but I have to realize like, I'm excited for Russo brother movies.
Yeah.
So and this has Chris Evans. This has Ana de Armas. It has my boy Ryan Gosling, who hasn't acted in 4 years.
Wow.
There's so much sexy in this movie. I want to bang all 3 of them.
Is La La Land the last thing that Ryan Gosling did?
I don't. Was First Man after?
Oh yeah, I think first.
Yeah, dude hasn't acted, and I always say how much I really like Ryan Gosling, but I can't put him anywhere, and I don't know that this movie's gonna get him in there. But I want to talk about Ryan Gosling again.
Right.
There's a chance it's gonna be disappointing. I mean, it's a Netflix movie, which I like a lot of Netflix movies. Don't get me wrong, but sometimes these like big budget, big star Netflix movies are a little underwhelming compared to what they could be. Like Red Notice, which also had a charming cast, was a good movie but not great. But this does have the Russos, so I expect a lot. And yet I'm a little scared that it's gonna disappoint me because there's so much in it. Yeah. It's so good.
And I tell you, the book series that The Gray Man is based off of are tremendously well received books.
Maybe I don't have any reason to be scared then. I don't know. I'm excited either way. We'll see at the end of the year how this turns out for me.
No, I'm super excited for that as well. Speaking of picks that are made off of the strength of just the cast on paper, comes my number 4, which is a movie we talked about a little bit earlier, Amsterdam. Give me a David O. Russell 30s period piece with this massive, fantastic ensemble cast. Like, we went through the whole cast, I think, off camera, and we're just like, this cast just keeps going, and it's really, really good.
Even as you go down the list, you still see some names of interest.
Yeah,
even if they're not, the top of the line, there's still interest.
7th, 8th, 9th credited cast is like, this is still going. Like, you could put this person's name on the marquee.
Yeah.
So, no, I'm really, really, and I in general tend to really like David O. Russell, so I'm really looking forward to what this brings, this 30s crime, murder, mystery period piece. I'm really looking forward to this. So Amsterdam's my number 4.
I wasn't excited for that until today.
Exactly. We got this, and hey, this is the benefit of the mid-year awards. We talk about stuff and be like, oh yeah, that's coming up.
Yeah, that's really
great.
My number 3 most anticipated movie for the rest of the year is The Banshees of Inisherin. I might have pronounced the last word wrong.
Okay.
You know why I'm excited? Martin McDonagh. Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri will be the one that most people will know. I'm excited because of him.
Right.
I don't know anything about the movie. I like the name too. The name's cool. I like the name. So I like the name and the director / writer.
Beautiful.
That's it.
I'll take that. Sometimes that's all it takes.
Yep.
In something of a similar vein, at the very least, like sometimes this is all it takes, comes my number 3, Black Panther 2 Wakanda Forever, because I just need to know. I just need to know what's going to happen. Because I need to know what's going to happen with the future of this character. I've heard people say that Killmonger is going to come back and take over the character. I've heard people say, I've heard people say a variety of things that's going to happen with the Black Panther character, that it could go in a multitude of directions. Does the multiverse somehow play a role in Wakanda? Like, there's all kinds of things that could happen with this. So on that basis alone, I just need to know. So Black Panther 2 becomes my number 3 because the anticipation and the nervous energy of not knowing boosts that up the list big time.
Right. The thing about superhero movies in particular is if there's enough that I can make a top 5, then I could easily just put all superhero movies on my top 5. But I don't do that because it's boring. I'm super excited for Black Panther. So there you go. That's a good pick. So my number 2 is The Forgiven, which has already come out in some festivals. And here's why I'm excited for this one. John Michael McDonough, the brother of Martin McDonough.
Oh.
I love these two.
Okay.
I probably said this to you before, but they might be my favorite writers.
Wow, okay.
In working today. They don't make the best movies, although listen, Calvary, I can't pronounce it anyway. That was one of my favorite movies of whatever year that was, and I love Three Billboards. Here's the thing, I don't think John gets as much credit as Martin. And I actually think neither one of them have made a lot of movies, like only a handful of movies, but I think if you take like the 2 best from each of them, which in my opinion would be, for Martin it would be In Bruges and Three Billboards, and John Michael would be The Guard and Calvary. I actually think his is better. It's probably not popular, but it doesn't matter because I can have both of them.
It's true. I don't have to choose.
And I don't know what the reception on this is like, but I don't care because I love their black comedy that actually still manages to have some heart and stuff. I find these guys great. So anytime that there's a movie from them coming out, I'm there.
And you get 2 in the same year.
Yeah, I get 2 in the same year. That's
Bingo.
so cool.
Bingo, man.
Like, even though The Forgiven is technically a cheater, I think. But that's okay. We do cheaters here.
Exactly.
We cheat.
That's the way. Exactly. That's the way we do things around here. We cheat.
Yeah.
My number 2 most anticipated movies for the remainder of 2022. Nope.
I knew Nope. I don't know why, but I knew Nope was coming.
You just knew it.
As soon as you were like this. Say Nope.
He's gonna say Nope. I am so on board. Hook Jordan Peele movies just directly to my veins. That's just the point that I've reached. I see he's making a movie and I'm like, okay, I'm on board with this. And I think that's the theatrical trailer that's out for that. I think that's a really good trailer. And I just want to see what this thing is. I've dove into nothing else about this movie other than that theatrical trailer, because if you're in a movie theater, it's on, how are you going to avoid it? Yeah. That to me is an impactful trailer. I can't wait to see what this thing is. So Nope is my number 2.
Right. So I will always see a Jordan Peele movie while also acknowledging that they don't do it for me like they do other people. I gave both his movies an 8 out of 10, which is respectable. Great. But I will always go to his movies. The only problem that I have with Nope now, which is a great title, but the only problem I have with Nope is that I've seen the trailer 5 times because I've gone to multiple movies over the last month. When's that movie come out?
Fairly. Let's look that up. Let's find out when that movie comes out. I'll get you an answer to that question, and I'm also going to stall for time as I'm talking and seeing when that movie comes out. July 22nd.
Thank God, because I'm so tired of the trailer. It's a good trailer. I'm just sick of it.
Yeah.
As soon as I see the beginning of it now, I'm like... Actually, of all the Jordan Peele movies, I think this is the one I've been most excited for. So I hope it's his best one. Okay, my number 1 is Thor: Love and Thunder. So when I saw the first teaser, and everyone was like, "Oh, this trailer's really good," I didn't actually think much of it. I was so excited because superhero. Thor's not one of my favorites, although they do him better now since Ragnarok. He's better as a little more comedic, honestly.
Yep. I
like Hemsworth. I love Natalie Portman. It's good to see her again. Waititi, I like him too. You know what I mean? Sometimes you watch some trailers where it's like, oh yeah, this one was like, yeah, it's good. I'm going to see it anyway. I don't really care. But then I saw like the new one that actually showed Christian Bale as Gore the God Butcher.
Yes.
And that's when this went from, like, it was still number 5 because it's a superhero movie. That's where it went from number 5 to 1. And I was like, I cannot wait to watch Christian Bale tear up the screen.
Yeah.
And so you made a point earlier about Christian Bale being in Amsterdam, and I was keeping this, like, I might have a fun year because I'm expecting his performance as Gore to be really good. And then if he's really good in Amsterdam, I might get to talk about Christian Bale again. I always proclaim him as one of my favorite actors, but I don't get to talk about him much. You know, and that's sad. So I'm hoping this year I get to rattle on about Christian Bale, because really seeing him was like the main reason. Like, I knew he was in the movie, but seeing him finally, I was like, yeah, I'm super amped for this now. I hope they don't MCU Gore the God Butcher too much, because he's a menacing. Like, he shouldn't be all jokey, so I hope they don't throw too much of that in there.
Right.
With him.
Do you worry about that with Waititi at that
I
moment?
do.
Yeah.
I do, because I think Ragnarok, as good as that, as great, as amazing as that movie is, I think there's times where he should have pulled back on the comedy. Like, I thought, like, the Hulk was made a little too comedic.
Yeah.
Like, that was the one flaw. I felt like I shouldn't be watching him be that silly. And the best MCU movies know that.
Yep. It's true.
You can have the serious nature. Like, somebody called Gore the God Butcher should be pretty serious.
Right. He better not be doing, like, Patrick Bateman dances, you know, and of course I use that because it's Christian Bale. But like, so yeah, I'm hoping for a more menacing version of that. I feel like the worst thing we could get. Ooh, this might be a little too on the nose. It might be apropos, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. My fear is we get Ultron.
I knew you were going to say Ultron.
Yeah.
Yes, I knew that.
Because in the trailer, all we see of Ultron is there are no strings on me.
Yeah.
And it's like, yes, Ultron. And then when we get to the movie, he's like cracking one-liners, and it's like, what is this?
Yeah. So
this is not the villain I thought we were getting.
I'm a mild defender of the Ultron we got, while also being disappointed, because he did end up being a little snarkier than anticipated, but I was okay with the snark for the most part. It was at the end where they just made him a wimp.
Yeah. And to close us out, my number one most anticipated movie of 2022 is Avatar 2, The Way of Water.
Gross. No, I'm just kidding.
And I have to pay homage to the fact that Pocahontas in space is like one of my favorite movies of all time. It really is. I understand why the movie's not fantastic. I definitely do. But you know what? I've been waiting 12, 13 years now for this thing. Yeah. And I understand that James Cameron has his thing where he's like, I have to wait for technology to catch up to me. And you know what? It's funny because Tom Cruise said the same thing about Top Gun. He's like, I had to wait for technology to catch up to us before I could even think about doing the sequel to this movie. I was like, okay, cool. And then watched the movie, and that paid itself off.
Right.
So great, awesome. I am desperately hoping that Avatar 2 pays off on that in the way that Top Gun did. But I have to pay homage to the fact that, like, I love that movie so much. And the fact that we now get to have another one where we get to take another trip to Pandora and we get another trip into this universe. I'm so excited for it. I am terrified that it's not going to live up to the way that the impression of the first one in my mind. But as of right now, that's the movie I'm looking forward to more than anything else this year.
I think people hate on the first Avatar nowadays, and they forget how excited everyone was when it came out. First one, and like I liked it. Like I told you off camera earlier, I probably rated it a little too high, but I still enjoyed it. My problem was the first one was like the scenes were like good, bad, amazing, good, bad, amazing, good. It was like two.
Just didn't have the consistency.
Yeah. So, but I did enjoy it. I'm not gonna say I'm excited for Avatar 2. I will definitely see it. I'm more excited to see what it does box office wise. I'm curious.
Right.
To see if it comes back and it's like a juggernaut, or if people are just like, we waited 12 years or whatever.
Right. If people are just past it.
Yeah.
And it's possible. It's entirely possible that they're past it.
3D is not a cool thing anymore. I mean, movies still do it, but it's not like it was.
So I'm interested to see if, like, maybe this isn't with, again, I mean, look, when you go on, like, an alien world like Pandora, obviously, like, it's the way that that world is designed is one of the selling points to the movie. So this is a movie that if I get the opportunity to see it in ScreenX, like the 235 degree, that would be a movie that I hope maybe when you hear James Cameron say something like, I have to wait for technology to catch up, maybe he's making hopefully he's making the movie with that in mind, where like, wow, this is a mind-blowing experience to see on a screen like that. So I'm very hopeful for an opportunity, hopefully, to be able to see the movie like that. But no matter what context I see the movie in, I just can't. So there you go, folks. Thor, Love and Thunder and Avatar 2 are our most anticipated movies for the remainder of 2022. And that brings to a close our first ever mid-year movie awards. Obviously, again, we've never done this before. Ideally, I enjoyed it, so I'm hoping we continue to do it in the future. I think it's a nice way, again, to give some love to those previous awards that we've never really touched before and say, look, the first half of the year in film, it's in, this is what we feel about it, or almost the first half year in film, but we still got a long, long way to go on this thing. Tyler, do you have any closing thoughts now that we're at the end?
Thanks for coming out.
Exactly. Thank you for coming, and just another 7 months before we get to do this again.
Sucks.
We'll see if Tyler makes it to 7 months, or maybe we have to do a three quarter of the year movie awards. No, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this first half of the year in film. I hope you enjoyed our mid-year look at 2022, and we will see you again in January when we look at the year as a whole, see how much things have changed, and maybe how much things have stayed the same. We'll see you again in January 2023.